Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel on YouTube, where Will and I have got the TNT takes for you on The Wheel of Time, Season 2, Episode 8. That's right, we're both pretty happy and sad at the same time because it is the last episode of the season, but we're glad to be back to talk about all of the action. And right off the bat, Andre Lee comes in hot with the 10 New Zealand dollars. We appreciate it, saying, Tia miavin moridin is Sunday vadin, which translate to death is no bar to my call. Always in with the great all-tongue quotes there, Andre Lee. Said, I've had no lunch or breakfast yet, so anybody got any hopper recipes I can use? That's a little bit still fresh, Andre Lee. You shouldn't be throwing out comments like that. Very fresh. I spoke to Will last night. What many people won't know is that the way myself and Will actually met is we became friends playing a game called Call of Duty together. And we were actually with some of the old boys. We were all on playing Call of Duty at the same time, which hasn't happened in a very long time, I should say. And I had a chat with Will prior to watching the episode, and he told me that he was a big old softy at certain points.
Oh, I am. I'm a bit of a big softy. It's okay. I'm in touch with my emotions.
I'm not judging. I'm not judging. I was trying to pick out the moments that you got sad, so I think it's going to be interesting.
It wasn't so much as sad. It was some of it was tears of happiness and joy as well.
Right, because you're seeing some of the storylines play out the way you want.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's some
That's exciting,
emotive moments.
That's great. Well, let's get straight into the episode. Let's go to the beginning, and Wheel of Time took us right back to the beginning, going back 3,000 years ago, where Lewis and Shamil were facing each other face to face. He's captured by a bunch of men. I don't know who those men were. Maybe there's a little bit of additional insights you can give in regards to that. But Shamil at this point is like begging for Lewis basically to put him out of his misery, and Lewis actually probably does something very cold-hearted, knowing that Shamil just wants to die and not live. He ends up sealing him away.
Yeah. Well, and also I think Luz knows the cycle of the wheel, that you'll be reborn again and destined to repeat. So he was anxious about the Forsaken being able to repeat. So he thought, why not seal them away in a dreamlike state, basically, so they can't be basically recycled back out into the wheel and cause more trouble. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was pretty cold-blooded. And yeah, like, it's like, what do they say? Like, you'll be stuck like you're living in a dream, like you're in a dream, which I thought was pretty savage. And yeah, interesting way of doing it. Interesting to see all the male channelers sealing them away, because it was all male. And it was also, I noticed there was a lack of the taint on the one pair as well, so I'm not quite sure when it was timed for that locking up, but I thought it was interesting.
I love to see the ceiling. I love seeing the flashback. I love seeing like Lewis getting to know him a little bit more, because obviously Rand is a reincarnation of him, and there are certain things that Rand, like certain traits that he has, that is very similar to Lewis. So I'm hoping that as the show progresses, we get to see a little bit more of this past time as well, and that the other side of the story will get filled in for us.
Yes, and props to both actors for speaking of the old tongue. It's something that I've been quite impressed with. Obviously, it's a fictional language that's been created. So I felt that both there's been a few scenes over this season and last that have had the old tongue spoken, and it's always been really strong and quite well done. So I thought it was really cool.
So Dolores here says that the dialogue seems significant at that point. Lena says, hi. Hello, Lena. Welcome back. Danica back as well. Have it on my phone in the background and already hit the like button. I appreciate that, Danica. Get the streams up for us. We do see the intro package, which I know you were very happy to see that back as well, with some great illustrations, very colorful. And later on, it's revealed that some of those people in the intro, they're part of the heroes of the past that we will see come back later on. I noticed that, even though I only watched it once, I noticed, for instance, the Asian girl that was on the intro package, she came in later on as one of the heroes of the past. So I don't know if you picked that up.
I didn't. I did Google the Asian lady from the Horn and the character, and I thought that was quite interesting to sort of theoretically, because there's always a balance, and she's essentially the woman's version of Rand, apparently.
Right. So that was
yeah.
cool to see. That was cool to see in the intro package. But we do start off on this episode, and it's going to be a difficult episode to go chronological. So I think at some points we may not go chronological, but at least at this point we can still start with Dane and his dad being out in the middle of nowhere. They've got all the White Cloaks together, getting ready to go into the farm and basically take back this village that has just been overthrown by the captors. Obviously, at this point, who are they again? The other faction, the
Sanshin.
The Sanshin, yes. So they're obviously aware of it, and it's an interesting bit of a dialogue here. Obviously, we haven't met his dad up until this point, Jeffrem, but I already had my spidey senses was tingling when this happened. Like I feel like I read that something was going to happen in the episode because they're giving us this very quick fix of what the relationship between the two of them are. Jeffrem being very much the mentor to Dane at this point in the story.
Yeah, and well, he's the leader of the White Cloaks. Or a high general of the White Cloaks, if I can remember rightly. So he, it's interesting. And I like, first of all, the fog or the smoke that the children were creating.
That was interesting.
Which I thought was really interesting. I thought they must, like, I didn't register them. I didn't see them right at the beginning when I first watched the episode. It wasn't until the second time I watched it, I saw them at the start. I saw them obviously before they got to the gates, but I hadn't noticed the children creating that fog earlier. So I thought that was really interesting. A cool way of doing it. Curious as to what it was they were burning that makes that sort of fog, like sort of layering. Yeah. And then I also like the the discussion between Dane and Jeffrem about, and Dane asking about the prophecies. And his dad was like, prophecies are lies of long dead witches. And then it cut to Lanfear in the ways. And I thought that was just a nice little cut across, because it was like, long dead witches. And then we've got Lanfear, who's 3,000 years old at least, Yeah. That was quite cool. Long dead, maybe not.
And they're in the ways. There's a great segue into that. They're in the ways, and very interesting dialogue here by Moraine trying to fool Lanfear in regards to not having her magic back, which I don't know why she thought that would work, because clearly Lanfear can see the magic or the weave around her, right? Yeah,
that was a weird bluff. It was a weird poker's bluff that was just not going to work. And once again, I just loved the interaction with Lanfear and just how effortless she was using the one power with Moiraine. It was just so subtle and so, like, Moraine was, you saw in the last episode how long it took her to get the way gate open, and Lanfear's just like, boop, and then they're both fly out the gate. I just thought it was great.
Yeah, so they basically flicked them both off. Rand is sort of not happy with that at this point, but she does have a plan here, because she says when the time is right, you'll know what to do, basically. Yeah. And throughout this whole episode, that was quite an interesting thing, because Lanfear almost predicted 95% of everything that was going to happen, except for that last 5%, right? But she was pretty much ahead of Ishamil the whole way.
Yeah. They're very clever people, though. They were very smart and intelligent people in their time. And if you think about their time being so futuristic and so high with technology and everything else, it kind of makes sense that they were, some of the brightest and greatest minds of their time. So for her to be able to play chess like that, even with another Forsaken, it just shows how clever she is. And she was able to play the game perfectly, like putting all the pawns in the right places so that it went away. And like you said, 95% of her game worked. That last 5%, a little bit of a shock.
Yeah, a little bit of a shock. We'll get into that. But this is where both Lan and Moraine ends up when they get flicked out of the Waygate. They're out somewhere in the middle of the desert, close to the ocean. And a very interesting sort of segment between Lan and Moraine, because they've not really had much time to like reconcile or anything like that since the bond was broken. And a big part of this sort of early parts of the episode was focused on the relationship between the two of them and,
the rebuilding of it, wasn't it?
The rebuilding. And I mean, it was so interesting because we know that Moraine had that conversation where she was pushing Lan away and she was giving him like half a truth by saying, we're not equals and things like that. So it was really good to see the writing come full circle. I know a lot of this wasn't part of the main story, but I thought the way that they tied up the loose ends with this relationship between the two of them was really well done.
Yeah, what was it? She said to him, "We've never been equals," and he took that as in she felt that she was well above his status. And then we found out in this episode that it actually meant that she was saying, because she couldn't lie, was "You've always been my better," which was just so huge, because you could tell that her saying the previous, we are not equals, that took him a long time to digest and get around. And he even says it in this episode, look, I understand now and I believe in what you do. You can't hurt me anymore. And even if I don't know all what's going on, I'm there to support you. And she was like, no, you are always better than I am. And I just thought, what a line. And then I really liked the seeing her bond him again. I remember talking in a previous episode as to how it's intimate that bond can be. Even though these two aren't romantically linked in any way, but you can still see how intimate that is. And the idea of her previously threatening to give her bond to Alana, that just shows you like that was a big threat and how insulting that was. And you could see just how intimate it was just with those two being bonded in that whole bonding situation. I thought it was a fantastic visual of it all, because it's very hard to understand what it could look like on a book, and they've got to kind of make it up themselves. And I think they did that really well.
I agree. It was one of those ones where you're like, they're not romantically involved, but it almost feels like it is a romantic thing when it's not. It's just a really intimate bond between the two. It's a
deep connection, isn't it? It's a deep, like your lives are linked. You're intertwined. If one of you dies, the other one is not going to outlive them for long. That's the kind of understanding. It's how strong that bond is.
Can you imagine what it would be making love to like your warder, like Alana and her two warders, with that connection on top of it? It must be next level. Like we mortals will not be able to comprehend the level of that. I think like it would be next level. That's something that sort of came to mind as well when I was like, I was like, man, can I find an Aes Sedai, please? I'll train to become a warder, because that connection would be next level.
And it does come with some bonuses too. Like you get extra like strength and agility. Like there's a few extra sort of emotion, like strength wise, you get a lot more sense with sort of bad things coming in and all sorts. So there's some other bonuses as well, not just the romantically inclined.
Andrew says here. And land on the Moraine and I land on the beach, and Nynaeve is going to get mad. Moraine is having tantric relations with Lan. Also saying apparently the weave lamp you used on Moraine and Lan is called the get the fuck out weave via Twitterverse. Andrew Lee, Moraine and Lan on the beach, and Nynaeve is going to there's the repeat of that. That's why she is so handsy and fisty on the other Aes Sedai who go after Lan as a warder. Yeah, that makes sense because of that bond, right? So Lanfear says she told him that she would. So basically, this is an interesting part here, because the next part here, Lanfear sort of meets up again with Shamil, right? So it jumps a little bit all over the place, and she admits that she mentioned to Rand that she will help kill him, basically to his face, being pretty honest about it. What did you think of this interaction and just the way that they were playing cat and mouse? And then Shamil immediately knew there was trouble. Like, because
do you know what? I thought it was really interesting how they played it too. Like we went from this really intimate scene with Moiraine and Lan to this scene with Ishmael and Lanfear, and they were kind of giving off those vibes almost as well, like they'd been there, done that before themselves. Like it was quite sort of snuggly and oh my dear, you knew what you were getting into when you got me out first type thing. I think she goes, "Oh sweetheart," and he's like, "Why did I wake you first?" type thing. Like, why on earth did I do it? And she's like, "Because you need me. You need me. I balance you," and that kind of, that talking about balancing off, that's quite often what's said with one, husband wife type thing. They often talk about how you balance the other person, which I thought was quite an interesting one. And the fact that she'd said, I told Rand I'm gonna help him kill you. It's like no holds barred. We've got him here. And he was really miffed that she'd got him to farm so quickly. which I thought was really interesting because you sort of got the feeling that he was trying to get Rand there as well. But then in that scene, it was like, no, we're not ready. He's not ready to basically swear to the Dark One. And she's like, well, if I was left it up to you, it could take lifetimes because you are so slow, methodical, and cautious. And we just need to get this done. We need to rip the Band-Aid and do whatever's going to happen. Yeah, no, I thought it was great.
Yeah, but immediately he knew that wasn't really just because he was slow. It's also because Lanfear's got her own motivations in regards to getting him there. And
she knew that,
cool,
and he knew that too. He knew that as well. He, you got that in the next scene where he's like, yeah, no, she's trying to screw me over.
Yeah, because in the next scene when and we'll get back to the Hopper scene and the Perrin scene because that all sort of comes in together when Perrin gets to farm. But I want to talk a little bit about the next scene. He goes to Fat and Payne. He talks to them about, we need to move ahead with Matt. We need to do what we need to do here. And he gets him to take the knife, the very thing that Matt has been trying to get away from this whole bloody season and it's almost like he's a drug addict.
He's trying I had that written down.
He's got withdrawals and he takes it to him and he sort of, again, they just keep emotionally bullying him. Like they're bullying him to the point where they're like, you're nothing, you're worthless, you're this bad guy, embrace your dark side, really just breaking him down. That's like, it's actually been hard to watch, which makes the ending of this episode so much more gratifying, as well. But yeah, it was an interesting scene.
Paddon Fane, the actor that plays Paddon Fane is just fantastic. He waltzes in, my best and poorest customer. Like just the lines that he delivers are just like, oh, fantastic. And I watched that scene again, and I'm like, actually, they're setting him up for discomfort and for awkwardness too. They've got him sitting in a dark room. He's in a desert beach scene. The city's in a place that's hot and warm. There's always a fire going on in the background behind him. Like there's these sort of mood things that they're trying to set him up to be uncomfortable. Scott, I agree completely on that one. And I just felt like, they're just trying to make him as miserable as possible. And by giving him this carrot, this poison chalice, this dagger that is literally the embodiment of evil is just next level. And, there was some of the lines that Paddon Fane, like, why are you trying to pretend you're some hero from a Glee Man's tale? We both know that's not you. And I had like that. I wrote that down foreshadowing for that because of what's coming up later. But it was just like, oh, these little lines that Paddon Fane gets to deliver are so burning and cutting.
He's a good actor. Yeah,
fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And he's one of those ones. As soon as he's on the screen, you can't help but listen to and watch. He just you gravitate towards him.
I loved how we continue to see Matt's character evolve. Like, because like I said, it's taken a while and probably it's not been helped by.
It's been a slow burn for sure.
Yeah, and it hasn't been helped by the fact that it's not even been the same actor throughout, and that has made their story sort of telling around him very difficult. But how he outsmarts them here by getting the bamboo rod or kind of uses it as a pole. Then he gets a bit of cloth from the bed. He very carefully creates a spear out of the knife. I was like, this is amazing. He's like MacGyver right in front of us. Yeah, like he's like putting this thing together and he's like finding a way. And I really love that scene, even with him going out of the door, Paddon Fane thinking it succeeded, just to realize, oh no, Matt outsmarted me in this moment.
He used it like a lightsaber. I'm watching it going, hold on a minute. I'm pretty sure I've seen a very similar scene to this in one of the Star Wars movies. Let's just dash it through the bolt. Lena, how am I best to answer this without
there's a connection between the dagger and Matt.
Yeah. There is between Matt and the dagger, but there is a bigger connection between Paddon Fane and the dagger.
Right.
The dagger was found in Shoda Logoth, which is basically, it's darker than the Dark One. Like there's just this embodiment of evil from there. And there was a character who owned the dagger, like a creature person that was there in Shadow Logoth. And basically Paddon Fane goes in as well, and they sort of fused. I don't think it's really spoilers because that sort of gives him. So Paddon Fane's kind of like a split personality type character, which we haven't really got into. Yeah, the dagger is kind of it's evil as well, and it spreads from there. But Paddon Fane doesn't get the spreads from it because it's his, and he doesn't actually like giving it away. But Ishmael's told him to. So. Yeah, I don't know if I don't want to go into too much more detail.
That's fair.
But
fair. At least gives them an idea.
Connection. Yeah. But very good question, Lena. And Dagger's always going to be a problem, Dolores.
All right, so a big part of this episode. Let's move on a little bit from Matt and that scene. A big part of this episode is Perrin and the ale woman coming onto the farm as well. Hopper's left behind. I thought he was going to be safe this episode because he says stay here, don't come in, and then we get the scene with them walking up. They're noticing a lot of things going on within the town. We've got the great hand signals being used again within the walls so they can communicate effectively.
Yeah, there was a really interesting line that Avenda sends before they get inside as well.
Go for it.
Which was many people. So basically, they look over. And there's a little hand signal, and they go, basically, this thing that doesn't belong here. And I was trying to work out whether or not they're talking about the fog that the White Cloaks were creating, or if that was the girl saying Hopper shouldn't be here.
That's what I thought.
It could have been taken both ways. The first time I watched it, I thought they were talking about Hopper, but the second time, after having noticed the fog in the background as well, and that's kind of where Perrin looks to. He doesn't look down to Hopper when they say that. So I think there were two things being said there. One was to do with the fog. That's not man-made. Something, that's not supposed to be here. Something's going on funny there. And then Perrin's like, hey, we're about to go into a city. Hopper, this might not be for you. But then Avienda says this line. She says the line, many people will wake from the dream today. And that line has a lot of symbolism and foreshadowing for the show right the way through, because of lots of things.
Because one of them did wake up, at least that we know for a fact.
6 of them,
right? Well, one that we know for a fact because they. Oh, okay. Yeah. I get what you're saying. 6 of the Forsaken. I was thinking about Matt. Because he woke up, he realized who he was. So, but anyways, we'll talk about.
There's lots about that. Yeah, but that's it was a really key foreshadowing line. I thought was great.
Yeah, so that's amazing. It's good pickup because I kind of missed that. But they obviously run into Iktar and Loyal within the walls. Iktar just sacrificing himself in a fight here to let them continue on within the walls. Loyal being back now as one of the main characters, I think would probably be pretty gratifying for people who read the books because he's a big part of the story as well, right? So that would have been good. And then also we've, in the same time, got the Matt and Perrin reunion, which is also really good to see because Matt is running away from some trouble. And I feel like in the books, that's probably something that happens quite often.
Yeah, he's often dashing away or backed into a corner, so he's got to fight. So there was a few things happen there I really liked. So Ingtar, once again, that's one that sort of broke away from the story a bit. He did die defending a group like that in a narrow alley, but that's probably not a spoiler, but Ingtar in the books is a dark friend who sees the light and turns around and goes, hey, look, I've made all these bad choices. This is me trying to save my soul here. You guys go. I'll stop these Sanshin soldiers from coming through. So that's basically his little arc. And that's sort of as soon as he walked to an area and said, one man could hold 50 here, I'm like, okay, this is it. We know Ingtar's about to die. And then he says for the light and Shinoa, which was the Shanaran battle cry. But for the fact that he said it's for the light, just sort of helped cement that, he's a good person. And maybe Mesma is a character who we got. He's the other Shanaran soldier that's still alive, or the only one now. And he got a lot of scene time during this episode where it just cut. He didn't have lines, but he had a few cuts. So they're building him up. He'll have a lot more to do in season 3, I'm guessing, or at least later on seasons if we get a bit further in. I love the little line from Lyle about the fact of what about the heroes of today? We're all heroes for another legends age. That
was cool.
Which I thought was really cool, and it's time we start acting like it, which I thought was really cool. And then also the little nod once again to Landfair, Lady Celine helping them out to get the horn. We had help from a lady from Kirahan, is what Ingtar says when they got the horn. He says, "Oh, we had help from a lady from Kirahan, which would be Celine." Which I thought was quite cool. And
and that was the scene. That was the sort of what was shown when they talked about the legends of today, and they showed these 3 ladies standing there at that same time as well when they're in there for the battle. But Dolores brings up something here, which I've got to say this was very tough to watch. I started putting 2 and 2 together when a Hopper came in, started fighting with them. I was like, oh yeah, Hopper's here. He's going to come help Perrin and the likes of the rest of them. And then seeing Jeffrem, the dad of Dane, as a Dane, the name Dane, seeing his dad come in and just swipe through Hopper, because you had just had the scene with Dane and Perrin together, and he's like, "Oh, 2 rivers, you're here," and they're like fighting back to back. They're almost on the same side, and you see the wolf come in and Hopper, and then gets, killed in the process. I was like, "Oh no, Perrin's he's gonna take revenge on Hopper in this moment. He's gonna have to." It was sad on so many different levels, because you feel like Dane and Perrin could be very good friends, but this is going to be that thing that's going to set them on separate paths, and there's not going to be an understanding here, because Perrin doesn't know who he killed. Dane doesn't know the significance of Hopper, so they're coming at it from 2 different angles, and this is going to put them on a collision course moving forward in the show. So many things happening there.
Yeah, and his dad just did it so nonchalantly as well. Just walked over, bloody hell, boom, and then right, come on, Velda, let's go. Like it wasn't necessarily an act of malice. All he did was he looked over and saw one of his questioners being attacked by a wolf. He didn't think anything of it. So poor Hopper. That was, of the 2 scenes that had a tear in my eye, that was number 1. Just because it's Hopper, man.
I don't know. I haven't seen any of the reaction videos yet, but it's sad and shocking to see him Hopper going out of that way, because I thought Hopper would have such more significance in the show. Like I just felt like Hopper would be with Perrin until the end. Like that's so it was definitely, I was caught off guard in the moment, but when it happened, I was just thinking to myself, great storytelling. It's putting things in place for what's going to move on the show moving forward.
You also notice in that scene too, we got to see Hopper doing his little hop, so heading off up. But also you notice that Perrin's eyes changed golden and didn't change back the rest of that episode. So they stayed
I didn't
golden.
notice that.
So previously they sort of, when he went into battle, sometimes it went and then it turned off again type thing. But during this, once Hopper died, they changed golden and they didn't go back. So he's fully embraced that Hopper wolf side there in that respect, which I thought was really cool. It was a nice visual telling of how impactful that was to him as well.
It's a good question by Lena here.
No, they can heal animals as well. I say that. I know of instances where I can remember where they've healed or given stamina to horses, like Moraine does it in the first book, to make sure that Bella, the pony, can keep up with or they use that to try and give them stamina. So I assume they can. It's just not overly well talked about, to be honest. It's a very good question.
So for those that are listening to the audio version, we had Lena ask another question for Will here, was will Aes Sedai only be able to heal humans? So interesting one there. For those that have read the books before, let us know in the comment section below. We may have stumped Will on this one because it's a left field question. A good question.
No, I assume yes. Like they can, but I just don't recall it happening other than sort of little bits. But
right. Andrew Lee says, so remember from now on to record non-book readers to create a time capsule for posterity. Scott says, having never read the books, I mostly haven't really understood most of the series, but these last few episodes, especially this one, have been fascinating nonetheless. And that's why we try our best. I think I come at it as well. I've read the first book, but the second, I think that was the problem that a lot of people had with the first season. is that some of it felt a bit rushed, some of it felt not that well explained. There are still certain elements that are not well explained. And having been on this podcast, it's the bond between the five kids from the Two Rivers. What do you call that again? It's the toe.
Tavern.
Tavern.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that again to people a little bit?
Sure. The thought in the books, it's only the three boys that are Tavern. Basically, what it means is the wheel weaves around them. They have power to sort of shift the weaves a bit and change things around what they want to have happen. And they're so strong that they can literally walk in, and the person who was going to be saying no to them from the beginning, they can basically make them say yes just by their power of being Tavern, and they change things from happening. Like there's instances in the story where Rand will go into a village and next, everyone's off getting married because that's just how his Tavern at that point is working. And so in this series, they're sort of not just going from the male boys' perspective, the three of them, they're sort of intertwining both Nynaeve and Egwene into that as well, and showing that the five of them have a lot. I mean, there was always a really strong link there, but they only referred to the three boys as being Tavern, where I think they haven't sort of gone too far into the Tavern storyline in the series, but they're talking about how important the Two Rivers Five are, the Emmonsfield Five are.
Yeah, Dolores says Hopper, yes, I was sure it was going to be such a big significant part of the journey and future journeys, all part of the wheel. Hopper is still hopping. Spoilers. Lena says, yeah, okay, so Lena is grateful for that response. But at this point, this is where they talk about the Horn of Valir, how important it is to get it to Rand at this point. Rand needs to blow the horn to summon the legends from the past, and Matt is given the responsibility to go, and he's like the reluctant person to do it in this moment, because he's like, I'm trying to stay as far away from Rand as possible because I know it's not supposed to end well if I get close to him at farm. And now he's the only one that they have to rely on. And I thought it was a brilliant scene. This was my favorite scene.
He also didn't want to leave Perrin. He was apprehensive to run away again. Like Perrin's like, you need to go, and he's like, no, I want to stay. And he's like, no, you need to go. Oh yeah, and because he's already run away from his friends that needed help before, and I think for Matt, that really struck him as, I don't want to do that again. The fact that he used the dagger to open the box with the horn in it gave me the nerves, because you see how that blackness spread from the knife, from the dagger, and you're like, what happens if that was to taint the horn?
Yes.
Like what happens there? And that always worried me. But yeah, him, like, and other thing, when they both, Perrin and Matt, met up for the first time and they gave a big hug, and they're like, yeah, we've seen Rand. He's got shit here. I was just
it was brilliant.
I was like, oh god, that's just his humor. And I was like, oh, I'll get a haircut myself. I just thought it was funny. I was just like, oh, brilliant.
Great dialogue. And Scott, I think a lot of people are in the same boat as you, and I'm like hoping that if there are people who gave up on it after the first season, they come back, because the second season, like the first season for me, was enough to make me want to read the book so I could understand more. But the second season has sort of blown my expectations out of the water so far. I've been really enjoying this season, but such a great moment, obviously, with Matt trying to get to the tower. In the meantime, there's a big fight happening on the tower. In fact, I probably should backtrack before we get into the segment, because there's a lot that happened that we haven't spoken about yet. There's this whole scene before even that, let's talk about Nynaeve and Elaine first. Nynaeve and Elaine, this whole scene seemed almost like it was not important in the bigger scope of things, because they went through all of this trouble to catch their own Damani, right? For Nynaeve to be disguised as a Soldan, for them to be able to go up and get her from the kennels. They at the moment don't know what's happening outside of the building. But I think that the whole reason that we saw this scene in the greater scope of things, because it was one of the more insignificant ones in the greater scope of what happened in this episode, was again to show how strong that bond is getting between Nynaeve and Elaine. Because Elaine, in the process of this, gets injured. She's shot by an arrow in the knee. People who played Oblivion, Elder Scrolls would love that. She took an arrow to the knee. And then we ended up, Nynaeve there, needing to heal her, but not being able to do it in the moment. But also Elaine kind of telling her, you can leave me here right now. But two things here is, Nynaeve, I think Elaine has earned the respect of Nynaeve throughout the last couple of episodes. They've bonded, they spent time together. Plus, Nynaeve don't trust in her own ability to be useful to Egwene here, and she needs Elaine for her power, which was a really powerful scene. Just the bond and how strong that's also got between them.
There's a few. I can understand why you think it didn't really have a big sway on things, but there was a couple things that I thought about. One was that definitely that whole how broken Nynaeve is now. She's been like, I don't think we've seen her channel since she got out of the rooms.
You're right.
Like, so I think that whole situation with that, like she lived a life where all her friends died, her daughter died, her husband died, and
she was in there for many years. We forget. Like,
she
was there for years,
like
right?
That's a lot of emotional hurt there, and the fact that she felt helpless, and now she's been told that she's going to be the strongest Aes Sedai in history type thing. She's got all this expectation of her, and she's expecting like she just can't do it. She's almost got like stage fright. It's almost like she's got that block that stops her from doing it. So I think that was. That was you had that, and then you had Elaine bossing the whole pain, and that was a good telling of how strong she is as a person, that she could get a arrow pushed through her knee, not pass out from the pain, and then get up and that's next level pain. Like, you hear people passing out from all sorts of things,
especially for someone like her that comes from royalty, that are used to having like a nice cushy life and everything's given to her on a platter. You don't expect it for her to have this backbone like she's
no, and she has it in spades. So that was a really good telling for knowing how broken Nynaeve is and the damage that's been done to her this season, and what we're going to have to see her go through next season to build back up. So we had that. We had the Elaine and the strength that she has, and also the telling Nynaeve, look, you're a wisdom. Use your wisdom. What you know is a wisdom. Don't worry about the power. Use what you know there. Then you
she's very wise.
Yeah, hugely. Then you also had the fact that the Soldame that they captured died, took an arrow to the throat, and died, and that showed us
Nynaeve.
as viewers. Well, it showed Nynaeve, but it showed us as viewers that is how the collar and the bracelet will fall off. So before that, we didn't know that. So that was another, because obviously with the Egwene scene coming up, we now knew we had that. Okay, that's going to fall off when someone dies. So we now know that that's something. So we didn't know that previously. I mean, it's an assumption we'd make, and it would be a smart assumption, but they just wanted to reinforce that fact that, when they die, it falls off and it's free to use again.
No, you're right. And again, when that Soldan that they captured took the arrow, Nynaeve must have felt that as well, because they were connected. So for her to be able to withstand that,
just a little bit. Wouldn't have been as strong. They don't feel they don't feel that it's not doubly for them, because she was the Soldam, not the Damani.
Yeah, because her we later on find out that their connection to the weave there's a connection. It's just really weak, almost insignificant. That's why they try and capture the girls that can weave so that they can feel stronger, basically throughout that, which is fascinating in itself. But this would probably be a good time to talk a little bit about Egwene being in the kennels here as they're starting to fight. Rhaena coming down to her saying, "You're now going to come and fight with me. If you disobey me, I will cut your tongue. I will cut your hands." Like, being very brutal. She's not trying to be Egwene's friend anymore like she was in the beginning. She's realized that she has to do it the forceful way here. And then with Egwene being very sort of, I guess, stubborn in this moment, and still having her own identity, like you said, and I think Dolores brought it up earlier in the live, that significance, that little bit of backstory that you gave us about the hair, and the fact that that's what kept her feeling like she's still a woman, she still has her own identity. That I really felt it when her hair was taken from her in this episode. It was a sad moment to know that. Luckily, she's not going to be captured for much longer after this, but this was like something that she held on to. It was like almost the thing that kept her sane for all of this.
Yeah, and I really liked that. I thought that was a good nod to the readers, or people that actually sort of understood the significance of the braid. Like, for anyone else, it might not necessarily mean too much, but knowing that showed that how, like, that was like the final straw of, this is your last link to being a woman, So they cut it off. She cut it off, and that the whole thing, like it was just there was fire in Egwene's eyes after that. Like you cut to her, and that fire and steel that you could see behind those eyes was just like, ooh, let's go, let's see what's coming up next. Yeah, no, I thought it was really interesting. Another great dynamic scene between the two of them. They've definitely been an interesting watch over the last couple of episodes, those two.
Yeah. And this is where we go. There's a scene with Rand walking up to Valheim. Lord Turak wants to prevent him from coming in. And we kind of see that, Rand is not in a mood to play around, because he instantly basically gets rid of them in this moment here. It's almost like I had flashbacks to Lanfear when she weaves the magic. And we know that he's not even close to even an Aes Sedai level at this stage. He's supposedly not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Maybe after this whole fight, he will have learned a little bit more about controlling his I guess, connection with the One Power. But what an interesting, fascinating scene. It's just they were so insignificant. I mean, obviously, Lord Turak basically said, let's see what earns you the Heron mark on this side of the what was it, the water or something like that? I forgot what the exact saying was, the exact quote.
Yeah, it was Heron mark's sword. Let us see what is required to earn the blade on this side of the ocean, was what it was. Side of the ocean. And then he busted out, and I'm like, how on earth is he supposed to fight with those nails? Because in the book, so this is another thing that readers get a little bit annoyed with, is there was actually a pretty good fight scene between Rand and Turak with the swords, and it was quite an impactful one. And that was, I think they probably cut it because Rand hasn't necessarily had the training with the sword that we get in the books. I think I remember telling you that he got trained quite a lot with Lan early on in book 2, and then there's forever sort of talks and mentions about the significance of the blade, and like practicing throughout the book to the end of the book where he fights Turak, and he's clearly a Heron marked swordsman, and we know that Rand kind of didn't earn it the way you normally would, but he still got it. So that whole fight scene meant a lot more in the book.
Yeah, I feel like
the fact that he just instant death. Like we didn't have the time to waste, and it was nice to show that he wasn't taking any. He wasn't pulling any punches. He's furious about what they've done to his friend. The woman who he loves, essentially, as far as he's aware at this time. And in season 1, they were in love. They had sex in the tavern. Pop up, kill some people, and bounce off, which kind of happens a bit. But the one thing I don't know if you noticed is he left the voice, Turak's voice, alive, because as far as Rand was aware, he's just a slave as well. And then the voice says, "From birth to death, I serve the blood," and killed himself. And because that's basically what they do. They're born, and that's their job from birth, is they get basically given to the person that they're going to work for from then till death. So if they die, you die. And I thought that was a really humbling way of showing that in a really interesting way, but to also show that Rand was only killing soldiers and Turak, who was thought to be.
Yeah, Dolores says, thank you. Well, I saw those nails, and oh heck, no, I want to see that. Okay, Rand linked, and it was over. I agree with you. I think it's just for people who read the books in that regard to be very upset about that. There was just so much other things that needed to happen within this episode that I think that, personally, I'm okay with him. Like, we know that Rand, the story is not about him being a master swordsman. It's about him being able to weave and have the magic ability, right? So that was definitely something that I wanted to see. Lena said that was so cruel. It was a cruel act. I'm not sure if it was where he took them out. It's probably where the hair was cut. Faisal Memon says, if Amazon can make good shows, then why cannot Netflix or Max? Well, I think we'll like some Netflix shows. I'm very cold on Netflix, Faisal. I'm with you. I don't enjoy. I've not had a Netflix subscription for coming up close to 12 months now. I quit Netflix a long time ago, and when I heard that Henry Cavill was let go from Witcher, or that he decided to move on, that was probably the last show I kind of watched that I found good. I'm hoping Netflix ups their game, but Amazon's doing a good job. And but Amazon also focus, I think, more on quality over quantity. They don't bring out as many shows as Netflix, where Netflix just pumps out shows.
And I think also the budget, because they're so careful as to what shows they create or bring to life. Amazon, their budgets that they use, I know for the Lord of the Rings series,
That was insane.
the budget they had for that was just over the top. And so they sort of, like you say, they're trying to work on quality over quantity, I think. But definitely there's some really good shows on Netflix. Yeah, I watched a few, but we have it for the kids mainly.
Scott here says, even not knowing the significance of the braid, the way it was done made it clear that it was very important. They kind of had like the somber background music. It was kind of like it was given a moment for it to like sink in on the show. They didn't just cut and move on to the next scene, which I think helped. Let's see what else is coming on. Fessel says, what happened about the small figure in season that Moraine gave to Rand to channel his power through season 1?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that at the end of episode 8 of season 1. Actually, yeah, I don't know that little figure. It was a Turangrail or Sangreal maybe, which basically helped amplify his power. We don't know what happened. I think that was potentially used and destroyed when he destroyed the seal, freeing Ishmael. But I'm not sure. We didn't see it again from memory.
Linnea says, Renna cutting Egwene's hair was so cruel. Yep, that makes sense. That's what you were saying. Andrea Lee says, Netflix has been on my shit list since they've cancelled 1899. Scott, I agree with you. Apple TV Plus also has some great shows. I'm a big Ted Lasso fan.
Yes, Ted Lasso is fantastic.
Yeah, Lena said, but honestly, Amazon could approve longer Wheel of Time episodes. That's the funny thing for me. I was thinking about it because I asked you last night, well, before I watched, I was like, how long was the final episode, right? On a streaming platform, there's nothing that says it has to be 60 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever. But I do think it comes down to probably budget. Like, what is the budget that they have? How much can they do? How much can they pay an editor? How much filming crew can they like have out there? I don't know. Like, there has to be some logistics we're not aware of.
Well, they also they also want to try and potentially sell it to TV channels. Like, there's potential the on sell. They want to be able to on sell it to, your likes of your TVNZ or your, those sorts of channels that will then have that syndication
advertisement revenue,
all of that, where they've got to be very mindful of if it's too long, your ad breaks don't fit through and they've got to start cutting stuff out. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I would have always loved for it to be more like that. I know they had originally pushed and keep pushing for 10 episodes per season, but I think Amazon have been very strict because they only ever do 8. They don't do more than 8 episodes in a season, I believe. Don't know Carnival Row. Interesting.
Same. Don't know it, but we'll keep an eye on that. And then Flora and Sun is another recommendation as well. So cool. Some recommendations coming in here. We love it. If you don't mind, put that in the comment section below on the video as well, so I don't forget it later on when I come back.
That'd be great.
I'll definitely go check those 2 shows out. But yeah, it was very interesting. At this point, obviously, this is where Egwene goes up to the tower with Renna. They're fighting off, and she's noticing that she has to fight these White Cloaks, which from memory she had experience with them with Perrin. So it's not like there's much love lost between.
No, and that's what changed her mind. You could see when she first was up there, she's like, no, I'm not doing this. And then she has a good look and sees White Cloaks down there and she went, sweet, fireball, boom.
Yeah. But I think the devastation, seeing people getting hurt at the bottom, innocent people getting injured, that's what kind of shocked her out of that.
And stopped her again. Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, where she's like, no, I'm gonna defy Renna's orders here, and I'm gonna go up against her. And with her not being on the tower, they get shot in their blind spot, which was the spot they were supposed to cover. And we see that the blue Aes Sedai that were next to her gets killed in the process, which means that the collar is there. And as soon as I saw the collar, I was like, I know what's coming.
Yeah,
I could pick it up. I'm like, okay, she's gonna collar Renna, and they're gonna be bound to each other here. Like, and it was a brilliant scene. The way that it sort of worked out, the way that she how book accurate is this? Is this the way that she got out of it in the book? And don't spoil it for me in the book because I still need to read the book, and I'm actually quite interested to know if it's different or not.
It's different. They weren't up on a tower, right? And there definitely wasn't the scene where they were both collared.
Okay, cool. Because I don't want to be spoiled on how it happens in the books. Because I'm
you're going to read
how she. Yeah, I'm interested to see how she's gonna get out of that in the books. But what an interesting way to do it here, and then also just her ability to be like, I'm gonna put you through the max amount of pain that I can here, and I'm just gonna stand here and hold it, like hanging her basically.
But even before that, like there's that whole, and this was the such an interesting thing regarding the Soldam and the Damane is the fact that Brenna's like, she puts on the collar and she sort of looks as like, stupid Egwene, this is not going to work on me. Like I can't channel. And then next thing you know, it builds up and she is completely shocked because, so they haven't really talked about it in the show. In the show, they describe it as you are so weak in the power, they couldn't sense it in you. That's why you were never collared yourself. So basically giving the, like, not only are they saying that the Soldam can channel, which is earth-shattering because you think about how they treat their Damane as like dogs, essentially. So not only are you being compared to a dog, but you can be being compared to the weakest of the weakest of the weak because we couldn't even sense that you could do this. So it was, you're below again, you're dropping you down even further. And that's a bit different from the book. In the book, they talk about there's two types of channelers. You've got the channelers who are called wilders, and basically they will channel no matter what happens. They will learn how to channel on their very own. They could be left in a village in the middle of nowhere, and without Aes Sedai, they're still going to learn to channel. But then you have channelers that have the spark, but unless someone actually teaches them to focus on the flower and do those sorts of things, they're never actually going to channel instinctively. And so that's majority, like that's like 90% of channelers are like that. And only a very small percentage of wilders that will actually ever fully channel. And the wilders are generally the more powerful, but they often, because they've learned in their own way, they often have blocks. Nynaeve was a wilder, essentially. She in the book, she channeled instinctively to heal Egwene when she was a child and put up these blocks to not do it again type thing or make it hard to do. So she was a wilder, and it's one of the reasons why she's so powerful. Whereas, so in the books, they talked about the Sanchin and the Damane being wilders, and the Soldam being channelers that just needed to be taught how to use it. They had the spark innately in them, but they weren't going to do it instinctively. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But in this, they've changed it because they realized trying to explain all of what I've just told you in like the last minute
very complex
would have been very complex and really hard, where it's spilt over. It's a slow burn in the books. In the show, they've just gone, you're a channeler, but you're just so super weak, we would never be able to know you could channel, which I thought was a nice nod. It's sort of, you can see why they've done that because it is a really complex situation.
I think a lot of that went over my head. I'm gonna have to go back and read it through the books as well and get it. Like, so it makes sense. Like, I can concur as someone that has not read the books that they probably did it the best way for us more casual fans coming into it from a TV show perspective. But Lena, thank you so much for the $4.99. Says thank you for covering the Wheel of Time. I appreciate you both, and I really appreciate you supporting the channel. Like, this goes straight back into the channel to continue to help make it grow, so that hopefully we can do more shows in the future as well. And I
appreciate it because it's the first time I've ever done it. It's the first time I've ever done a podcast, so I hope I'm doing okay. So I appreciate it.
You're doing a good job, mate. Like, I think people come here for your knowledge, not mine. They come here to see me sweat bullets to talk about a genre that I'm not familiar with. I was really nervous about doing Wheel of Time prior to doing the podcast as well, because I was like, I've only done competitive reality TV shows where there's like a lot of strategy and there's like a lot of it's like with a TV show, there's a lot more that you need to think about, and especially a show with a lore as rich as Wheel of Time, it can be very hard. Like, I could not have done this show without you all. Like, you've brought so much from that perspective. Fessel asks, who was that guy on the Weybridge in season 1 when Moraine told Lan we're being followed, and then when we saw during the the lighting, some guy standing on the bridge? So it's testing my memory. It's way back.
I think from memory, it may have been a fade. It may have been one of the eyeless following them.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, which is, and if I can remember correctly, that was kind of that sort of scene mimicked a little bit and gave you that sort of that Lord of the Rings feel when the Wraith are chasing after the hobbits. It's a little bit like that from memory. Faisal, I apologize if I'm wrong with that.
Thank you, Dolores. Love your support as always for the channel. Dolores has been with me since day one. Well, she's been here from day one.
She's an OG. That's
This is
awesome.
an OG. Yeah, OG.
Yeah.
Also, there's this very interesting scene here with Master Domond, and we spoke about that potentially coming back. We don't see the conclusion to it, but obviously, love Lanfear. Like Lanfear is probably like if we have to like nominate an MVP character for the season, it's Lanfear, hands down in my opinion. I don't know who you would put out there. Matt definitely like gets very close to it towards the end, but if we have to talk about just the whole season and its conclusion, you have to put Lanfear.
Oh, and there's some scenes in this episode with Lanfear. You're just like, oh, she's so proud. Like there's a moment later on where they cut to her, and she's just got that beaming pride in her. And I was like, oh, bless. She's bent and broken and completely evil, but also wishes the best. Like she's such a complex character, which is exactly what you want from a Forsaken, because they are completely complex and odd characters.
I actually don't know where that beach was.
The beach, I actually know this one. It was in Morocco. And it was actually in an area that that's not been filmed. They've not had a lot of filming before, and it was actually caused a lot of troubles. It was quite an interesting one, I believe.
Really? Did they like mess up the ecosystem or something?
No. I think it was, Morocco's at times there's a bit of political unrest, and there's a lot of, and there's also a lot of poverty as well in Morocco, I think, in certain areas, and they went to areas that will maybe have a little bit more.
Should have gone to Namibia. Namibia would have been perfect, and it's honestly, it's like one of the most stable countries in Africa.
No, I've heard many, many good things about Namibia. Actually, I got friends that live there now and love the place. So and they've got big, long stretches of beach, just like that, don't they? Yes. Ethan, Dakla. Yeah,
that's Wolf's Middle Eastern, the Middle Eastern experience coming into play there with his pronunciation of Dakla. No, but look, very interesting scene. Love the fact that she was sort of, getting him. She said, I'm going to give you these extra pieces, which obviously later on, I feel like she said you need to throw them in the deepest ocean. And that's the Forsaken, right? Now, it didn't make sense to me.
100%. No.
Make sense to me in the moment, but I just came to the realization. She wanted to give, in this moment, I just came to the realization because I was like, what is she on about? I'm going to give you these pieces that I gave you earlier in the season. And
she loves Rand, man. Yeah. She loves Luz, and she knows everything she's doing.
Everything she's
doing. She knows how much of a
Rand.
shitstorm. She knows how much of a shitstorm these other 6 Forsaken are going to cause. As far as she's aware, she's got Ishmael under the thumb. She knows him. She's got him. As far as she's aware, she's got him pretty well numbered, and has him in a hole where everything's going to play out. Ishmael's going to die on top of the tower. Rand's going to be the Dragon Reborn, and she's going to waltz in beside him, arm in arm, get married, and live happily ever after. But Ishmael obviously knows a bit more than that. But as far as what she wants to do, she wants to make sure that these 6 Forsaken that are still sealed up, make sure that those seals aren't going to be broken.
What I'm finding fascinating as someone that had not read the books up until this point, how is she? Because obviously Pan Fane says, well, she's supposed to be fighting for the Dark One, right?
Yes.
And he says that no, but there's many ways for you to move throughout the night, right? Which is what Lanfear
said that as well.
Yeah, Lanfear said that to who's the Red Eyes
Leandrin.
Yeah, so she already had that in mind. He's reading her like a book, but it seems like everything she's doing is working against the Dark One at this point. So how is she able to maneuver like this? Like it feels like
she's got her own motives. She's got her own motives. She's obviously feeling that she'll lynch into and lasso Rand to a point where he will then go to the Dark One because of her. Like, she's got her own agenda, 100%.
She wants to make Rand fall in love with her because she's doing so much for him. Well, so she's trying to get his
he's
favor.
The reason why she became a Dark Friend in the first place. Because he fell in love with someone else and she went, I want him back. So the best way I'm going to do that is join the Dark One.
So I've got a very key question here for you. And it's something I thought about. I don't know if it's going to spoil too much or not. If it's going to spoil too much, you don't have to answer
keep quiet.
this.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, you could just be like, listen, I'm not going to I don't even know, because you're not answering might spoil it for people in any case. But I want to ask the question because I'm curious, and other people may have thought about this as well. You know how when Ishamiel and Lanfear were put to sleep or in this trance or whatever you could call it, does that prevent their reincarnation for being born? Like, because Rand got born because Lewis is dead, so it prevents. Yeah. So you can't have another Ishamiel.
That was what was alluded to in that scene 3,000 years in the past was that you won't be reborn. You will be stuck in a dreamlike state because Luz didn't want to have to keep being reborn, and live through all these lives with the Forsaken also doing the same thing. So by sealing them away in the Coendia seal, like they did, it meant the wheel couldn't respin them back out after every death.
It's very interesting to me because at one point I went through this theory as you try and decipher who's who in the zoo. And I thought to myself, well, if Rand's coming back, right, reincarnated, like surely Matt and Perrin are reincarnations as well. I was thinking maybe Ishamiel and Matt are kind of the same because that's why he's got this affinity towards Matt and he's really working with him and that type of thing. But that kind of blows that out of the water. He can't be Ishamiel because Ishamiel didn't die. Like he's only now dead. So there will be a reincarnation in the future if the wheel sort of spins again. But doesn't mean that they both aren't reincarnations. I guess it probably could still be people that we haven't learned about yet that died with Lewis later on. So that's going to be interesting, but you don't need to go into that because that might be future spoilery in regards to how that's going to work out. Let's have a look. So let's get into the obviously we need to finish off with Egwene and Rhaena.
Yes.
So obviously. Yeah, so Rhaena gets put onto with a collar, gets hanged. She's going through that pain herself, and she's just like, listen, I am willing to die right here, right now, unless you release me. Basically, she just said, this is how far I'm going to go and no further. I refuse to be attached to you in this moment. And again, it just shows the stubbornness of her, but also love the ruthlessness because she told her, I'm going to kill you. And she followed through. She did not make a light threat.
The strength of Egwene too, because you think like this Rhaena, we knew she wouldn't have had the same sort of strength.
Yes,
because we watched how strong Egwene is and how used to the pain as she is already from the collar. So she's been hung up herself. She knows what it's like, and my goodness, the fact when she's like, we are the same to Rhaena, and Rhaena's just like broken. And I was just like, so then when they hung her up and it was just that standoff of I am stronger than you, you will break before I do. And yeah, perfect. Egwene was stronger. It was just great. And then she just leaves Rhaena up there to die. And brutal. It was just badass. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then Rand rocks up.
He does. And just quickly, before we get into this, Rosa says Ishamiel was never the Dark One. He hasn't seen the Dark One. Ishamiel is forsaken, father of lies, betrayer of hope. Faisal asks, we'll go back to one sec. Faisal also asks, will the Dark One be in season 3? Otherwise, it'll become redundant. I feel like the Dark One is an in-game boss. We probably won't see them season 3. That's my theory in any case. You were going to say?
So Ishamael was one that was thought to be quite close to be able to actually touch people in the real world through dreams, which is where they talked about, he sort of he pretended a lot of the time to be the Dark One at times in people's dreams. And we saw that in season 1 where he was, wearing the mask with the flames and going into the dreams of the three boys. And that's where he was the father of he's a forsaken, and as Arosa said, the father of lies, betrayer of hope, because basically he's full of lies. He'd spin a yarn saying that because he was in psychiatry as a or psychologist or whatever it was 3,000 years ago. So he knows the cues, the heartstrings, the mind games to play, and he was great with that.
Yeah, I get that, Andre. I think it's a reincarnation of them, or I guess the pattern will always be the same. Like someone has to have Lewis's role in this new. It's not necessarily the same person. It's interesting. Interesting.
And I just, if you can pop up Faisal's last message too. Faisal, I agree completely. Faisal said, I wish Egwene freed the other collared instead of the show killing them. I agree, but I think we would have had issues with the Soul Dame. Would not have let Egwene go through or collar Renner in that way. That whole scene would have had to play out quite substantially different, sadly.
Yeah.
And they may still free some Domond, but then also there's the ones on the boat that we saw that won't have been freed either.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw that obviously. But yeah, obviously at this point, like you said, Rand comes in. You know, he's there to try and help Egwene with Shamil being there at the same point. And this is where Rand is kind of feeling himself because he just had a big W over Turak, handled him pretty easily. So, I mean, you can't blame him for thinking he can go toe-to-toe with Shamil in this moment. But Shamil kind of showing him that there is still a big level in power that Rand has not read yet. He hasn't achieved it. He's got the natural ability, but he's not there. And then also the backup plan that Shamil had talking earlier here to, was it Lady Saroth, to get out on the boats, to have all of her best Damani ready, and then shielding Rand on top of this tower so that he can't fight back. All very interesting things. We saw a lot about the shielding earlier on. It also shows why maybe it needed to be explained to us when they had the time. We didn't understand the whole reasoning behind Rand going to see the Amelin seat before going into where he needed to go. But a lot of that, like, we can actually see how the storytelling, I've been impressed from that point of things. Well, it feels like a lot of like loose ends and things that were set up in previous episodes all came to fruition here in this moment.
Yeah. Well, even in that scene, we had the basically the mirror image of when Luz was talking to Ishmael at 3,000 years beforehand. Like, it was almost mirrored, but the reverse, where, so honorable, so proud. I'm not Luz, basically talking about the fact that it's your turn to join us, like, you don't want to keep living these lives, you just want to. And I thought that was a nice link to that. And he, like you said, he just throws them so easily, just push just without an issue, just gone. It's
we're getting there, Andre.
We are getting there.
I've been trying my best to get there, but I want to make sure we talk about most of the things that happen up until this point, and it is next on the agenda. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about this face-off between Rand?
I just had a between Rand and Ishmael.
Yeah, up until this point. Like, is there anything else?
I've just remembered the importance of the fog.
Right, go for it. Let us know.
No. We'll come back to it, but just remind me to talk about the fog again, because I just.
All right, chat. Keep on top of it. Before we end the podcast, let us come back to the fog. But at this point, this is where I've been wanting to get into this because it was the highlight of the episode for me personally, and probably for a lot of people. We've had people comment even earlier on. I started a couple of messages around it as well. Andrew said, after watching decades for a TV movie adaptation, that horn scene brought tears to my eyes. Andrew also says, since we got the Horn of Hera slow-mo, we now get the Bubble of Evil slow-mo and timey-wimey stuff. Dolores says, I was shouting once he got her released. I was so excited for her. All right, Dolores. So this is the scene. This is the great scene that we saw with Matt running up, realizing that he's not going to make it in time. He's not going to get there because he's got to get through 20 or so soldiers on his way to Rand. And the one thing that I remembered was them saying that Rand needs to blow the horn, but Matt blows the horn instead in a moment here of desperation. And we get to see the heroes of the past coming back. The key thing that stood out for me, the thing that I really enjoyed, was when Matt said, I now know who I am. So we don't get anything after that. So that is one of the things that's going to keep us interested until season 3, because one of the things I was thinking in the moment is, will he continue to remember who he is after the effects of the horn has gone? Or does he only remember within the time that the heroes are there fighting with him who he is, and then all of that will be forgotten and we'll have the Matt that doesn't know how to find himself sort of left with us, and still trying to find his way.
Yeah, so without spoilers, the dagger basically, when it was removed from Matt in the books, it left some gaping holes in his memory, and he basically couldn't remember a whole lot of his previous life up till that point. And so basically what happens is the horn and a few other things start to fill those gaps in. So but they don't necessarily fill them in with his life. They get filled in with previous lives that he's lived, because he's been spun out from time to time, as the wheel does. and it talks about him, and it's him being a hero of the Horn because he's been spun out so many times and they've fought so many times before. This scene was the one that I had some full-on tears of joy and just yes moment too. It was to see how it was played out, to see him go from last episode being so broken, so like, it's your fault, you are just like him, you're just like him, to his dad, like his dad being
I don't think I could take much more.
No,
I don't think I could take much more of him just being like on the ground.
No, and that's it. And I said to you just watch, they'll have paid that, there'll be a brilliant payoff this episode. And my goodness, it was like, I knew it was coming. I knew what he was going to blow the horn. I knew that he was going to have the heroes for the horn behind him, but it still was just like, and then the fact of I'm one of you, and then the fact that, because it's in the book as well, Arthur Hawkwing, who we've talked about, is the Sanshin like precursor. He was the one who sent them over the ocean. Is the man who said to Matt, "I've fought with you for time and again. Like we've fought together many times before," type thing. That's Arthur Hawkwing with the wings on the helmet. Right. So the fact that their forefather is now being blown onto the opposite side's team, who's about to go and start slaying Sanshin, was just, for me, was such a great thing in the books, and it was just such a nice payoff. The characters, some of the Horn characters that were awoken, as really interesting. The fact that we've got Uno back,
which I
thought Uno's was great. Back. Yeah,
but
Uno's
back. Some people here are a little bit. So let's read this out here. Yes. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, so I apologize if I'm not. Q Nyogan is saying most book fan like Dovi Andi Sotovio again, but I would have preferred Matt to call to yell Karayan Kaldazar. I can't pronounce all of that, but overall great horn blowing scene. Also,
Alessandro, yeah.
Also, equals seeing Gaiden Kane. So I'm assuming that's a little bit different from the books.
Yeah. So I'll refer to Q's first part. The Kare an Kaldazar, Kare an Alessandro is a Q to a line from Manetheren, which is where the Two Rivers is. Like that sort of area is there was an old city and civilization called Manetheren, which is where the bloodlines from the Two Rivers run strong from that sort of place. And that in the first season, there's a song that they sing about Manetheren. And basically in that story arc, in that part there, Matt's one of his previous lives, he was the king, and his wife Alessandra was and he's basically fighting for her, from what I can remember, and that's his call of cry. I could be wrong. Please remind me. It's been a wee while since I've read it, but I'm pretty sure that's what that was, the Alessandro. The song in season 1 was just stunning when all the Two Rivers kids start singing it, because it's all in the old tongue. It wasn't, but it was just a really cool song. Now, Uno being Gadel Khan. Gadel Khan is a hero of the Horn. And he's a hero for the Horn. And then you've also got another hero that's there who was mentioned, Bridget Silverbow. You get her; she's beside Uno, and she has the long blonde braid, and she's just an amazing shot with the bow and arrow. And basically, her and Gadel Kane are always linked. She's like this really attractive woman, and then he's this ugly, sort of missing-eyed sort of character, and they're always they always get spun out together and find each other in a certain way, and they're sort of like forever love interests throughout.
Right. There's a lot happening there for us that have not read the books yet.
Yes.
Dolores says, so am I right in understanding that the Yellow Aes Sedai are devoted to the studies of healing? Yes. Dolores says, okay, I was confused on what Matt did. Obviously, Matt memories and spear, please do not let this be a replacement for Matt's book storyline. A lot of Matt fans, including me, will get very spewy if that is the case.
No, I don't think it will.
Yeah. What else do we have here? Dolores says, I like what he did, but I was confused because I did not think that he would be able to do it. Same. I thought it had to be Rand as well.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Well,
So could it be any of them that blow the horn? Any of the 5 of them?
No, it's got to be Matt now. But that was the concern and that was why they had to hunt for the horn, because they didn't want anyone from the dark to blow the horn and have, because basically whoever blew the horn, the heroes of the horn would fight with them.
So Rand is now connected to the horn where only he can blow it. Is that correct?
Matt, potentially, but no. Anyone else still can. They've just blown it this one time. So, but it's gone now essentially. You
could only use it once.
Well, it's you see that it gets taken away by the soldier, the person to his left, the lady, who I did do some research on, and I can't remember her name from the top of my head. I did Google it quickly. Lots of really interesting questions coming up though, Chris.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry,
not sure if I can answer them all.
Okay, well, don't answer anything that's going to spoil. For those that are in here asking questions, like myself included, if it's spoiler territory, we're not going to go into it because I have not read all of the books. I will be.
Yeah, and I don't want to. There is a lot.
Yeah.
But basically, this scene was just amazing. Now, fog. Just a reminder. So things that changed that were a little bit different from the book to the show was in the Amariso. Thank you very much, Arosa. Arosa just said it's Amariso was the one who took the horn. Not sure what she did with it. No, I don't know either. It's sort of, she did this flashy thing and it sort of disappeared. So we'll see how that comes up later on.
That question is a book question that I'm interested in as well. I think Will told me I'm good to read book 2 and 3.
Yeah. I believe so. From what I can gather, they've tried to combine a lot of story arcs from book 2 and book 3 into this because there's some parallels. Yeah, there's still. I'm not sure. I'd hate to say yes, book 3 is safe, and then them to turn around and use a lot of that in season 3. Book 2, you should be fine. I don't imagine there'll be much of a spoil from book 2 into this book 3 into season 3. So in the book, what happens is they Matt and Perrin have the horn. And they have the chest that the horn was in. Now, when they removed the horn, there's also a flag underneath under the horn. Now, that flag in the story is then flown by Perrin. So you've got basically you've got Matt blowing the horn, and then you've got Perrin who waves the flag as like his bannerman, like the bannerman in the fight, and that's where there was that change, and they basically ride out of the fog with the heroes from the horn. So basically, when he blows the horn, the fog erupts around Falm, and that's when the battle happens. Is at that time. So that's where I was like, I was trying to think about the White Cloaks and the fog that they created. That was actually in the book, but it was created by the horn being blown. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah, I'm probably going off a bit too deep, but yeah, it's interesting.
That's fine. I mean, this was one of the biggest scenes, obviously, for us that are watching it from just the TV show perspective. Exciting to see all of these heroes coming back, fighting with like the fog or the mist or the smokiness around them, being a part, and obviously being at the next level when it comes to the fighting part of this. They do end up, I guess, in the same time. I'm not exactly sure when Matt arrives up at the top of the tower, but we do get. Prior to all of this, we've got Elaine and Nynaeve making their way up there. Gwen comes back to her senses. She's blocking, which was insane to see. Shamiel at this point. Like, Shamiel is fighting, but somewhere down the line, Gwen is just like, her level has gone up. I mean, Rand couldn't even do anything, but Gwen has somehow surpassed his level at this point because she's able to defend against them, and it's taking a lot of power. And that was an interesting scene. While all of that is happening at the same time, Elaine is there to try and heal Rand. Well, actually, no, because there's a stab that happens before that. I've got it completely wrong on my order, because we've got obviously at the same time we've got Shamiel there wanting to take Rand on, and then the whole misdirect with him disappearing and Matt stabbing Rand in the motion there, which was sad to see because Matt's been trying to avoid it the whole time. He's been trying to avoid hurting his friend.
But it was also different from the flashback the vision that Min had seen too, because in the scene that the vision Min had, he stabbed him like he's got him like grabbed and stabbed. Whereas in this, it was from a distance, and it was actually Matt trying to get Ishmael, which I thought was great because Ishmael's first line when
you pointed out, just before we go into the first line, you pointed out in the previous life that could have also been Ishmael messing with her visions, right? So this could be a nod to that.
Yeah, most definitely. And that was kind of what I thought. Maybe that's what that was, and that was also a way of messing with Matt. But what I also loved was in that right at the beginning of when Ishmael rocks up and sees Rand, he's like in the flesh, and then the payoff from that was he wasn't there in the flesh at all. He was a mirage, and how could you not see it? It's such a simple trick, just showing again how low Rand's level of understanding is that he couldn't pick up the weaves. He couldn't see the weaves to see that it was a mirage. It was an image, and then also the other thing you forgot to mention was Uno rocking in and saving Perrin from Dane. Right. And giving him the shield. He gave Perrin the shield and said go, and sends Perrin up to the top of the tower as well.
Yeah, exciting. And then obviously he gets stabbed. He's hurt. This is when Gwen steps up, shields them. That's the moment that Ishmael is trying to break through. I feel like there's going to be some significant. I don't know anything. I just pointed out there. I don't. So this is just me trying to like figure stuff out. But Elaine being the one that's healing Rand. Him meeting her in the moment, it's like, who are you? And him looking up at her. I got a feeling there's a love triangle about to happen at some point. I'm getting some strong love triangle vibes, and Elaine and Gwen are very close. This is going to get messy, everybody. For those that love their love triangles, she's coming in to save his life in the moment. I feel like there's some significance there, Walt.
There was definitely a bit of a meet cute there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
that sort of wistful, who are you?
Yeah.
Elaine, right? Yeah, no, there was definitely a. Yeah.
So Faisal saying, the last question, are you guys Australian and what time is it there? I'm actually South African, but I lived in New Zealand for 15 years. I live in Australia now, and Will lives in New Zealand. He's a New Zealander. A lot of people get the accents wrong though.
Yeah, and my accent changes and is a bit of a bastard because I've lived overseas for a lot. So I pick up the odd key phrase and word and stuff and say it just a little bit different from everybody else in New Zealand as well. So yeah, there's a few things. So I've had people say they can't pick where I'm from because of that.
Arsenal, we spoke a little bit about this earlier on our thoughts on that. So I'm not exactly sure where the timestamp of that is. We can't backtrack to it now because we do need to get into this last part of the podcast. But definitely gave our thoughts on that earlier on the podcast as well. But yeah, I think Dolores is saying yes, love triangle. She wants to be the queen of the Dragon Reborn. I feel like Chris getting warmer, but also far away. Try again. Okay. Me also, Chris, some breaking girl code about to happen. I feel like there's something there. There was an interesting sort of glare between. Oh, so you're Rand. Oh, okay. Who are you? So let's see what happens there. But she's in the moment there, able to help with healing. And then just as Gwen nearly gets overthrown by the sheer power of Ishmael, Perrin comes in last minute with a shield to assist and help with that sort of shield that they've got there. And this is where we also get the throwback, because this is where it's going all over the place in the episode with Lan and Moraine walking up, seeing what's happening, seeing that Rand probably is being shielded at this point. And we know that Moraine's not at the level of the kids or even the Forsaken long term, but it was still pretty impressive what she did here.
Yeah.
Right, Will?
Yeah. It was a really cool scene for two reasons. One, just seeing Moraine using the one power like that. Like we've got such a brutality from the Forsaken. There's such a quick, powerful use of it with little hand gestures. But Moraine, it's like she's dancing. Like she's got this whole sort of wistfulness. And I'm sure pre-CGI, doing that without the computer graphics put in, it would look a bit strange. But as soon as you put in the weaves kicking through, she just looks stunning, and it looks so visually awesome to watch. And so you've got her doing this, and then you've got Lan turn around, and he's like, right, we've got soldiers on us, and he just goes full on Legolas.
Yeah,
he's the sword's flying, he's catching arrows, stabbing people with the arrows, and just lays them out. It was such a cool fight scene to see. It was so nice to see Lan finally unleash.
Get his moment. Because obviously the Bond's back, he's probably got a little bit more of that power back with that as well, so it makes him even more capable. But yeah, great work here by Moraine. Q Nugent says, with the way that Rand is, this could be a love hexagon. So I feel like Rand's a little bit of a player when it comes to Wheel of Time. We'll have to see how things turns out in the future.
Yeah.
Dolores says, where did the shield come from? Uno gave it to him.
Yeah, Uno did. And I tried to pause to have a bit of a better look at the shield as well to see if it was of any importance, but I couldn't quite see it. So just gave him something to help with Egwene against Ishmael, which I thought was quite cool.
That's right.
Yes, they were supposed to meet in book 1.
Lena, when Lan caught the arrow, wow.
I want to say I counted 2. He counted 2 arrows. He caught 2 arrows.
Yep. Went full on in battle mode there. But very interesting, obviously, Moraine assisting and getting Rand back up. And then we've got the scene with Rand fully charging at him with his father's sword, stabs Shamil. In the process, the sword is melted, so his father's sword is no more, but the Heron mark is now branded into his hand, which I feel like is going to have some significance in the future as well, with that being the case. What a scene here, and what an ending to Ishamil. Them combining together was strong enough to get the better of him here in this moment. Maybe individually he wasn't at that level yet, but together they had enough power.
Yeah. You're just incredible, and it was just that brute force, but also how unprepared Ishmael was to actually fight with a sword, because in none of the previous any iterations we've seen of Ishmael do we see him with a weapon. He's all about just using the one power. And he's obviously quite adept at that. We see him fighting with Egwene, and he's quite strong, but you never actually see him stab. Like, you never see Ishmael with a weapon. So he was completely unprepared for that, because he was assuming that Rand would come at him with the one power.
Right. Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic.
Also here, Arosa saying, I read somewhere that the shield had the Manetheren logo. Can't remember the word on the emblem.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
That would make sense.
Yeah. But this is also the moment that the dragon needs to be proclaimed, right, on the tower. So Moraine helps a little bit by creating a dragon-like fire that goes up the tower that looks really cool with all of the 5 characters at the top. We now have everybody knowing who Rand is, which I thought was very, very interesting as well. So with that, it's kind of the conclusion of the season now. I know you had me, I think you had me with one of these images that I want to bring up here that you wanted me to bring up as well to give the significance of all of them together. It's interesting to see here that Elaine is a part of this group as well, because she's not from the Two Rivers.
But she's definitely one of the key players. As we've sort of got her, she's been involved more and more in this season, obviously been introduced in season 2. And then we have the fire dragon that Moraine put up. Also, Andre Lee asked who raised the dragon banner in the books. It was Perrin. It was the dragon banner was raised by Perrin. He was the one who rode into the battle with the dragon banner on a spear.
So the Wonder Girls, would that be Elaine, Nynaeve, and Egwene, I would assume?
Yeah,
the 3 of them.
There's a few things that happen at that scene. They cut to a few different people during the scene where the kids are up on the tower. They cut to Avienda, who in the ale, who says Karakan, which is what, if you remember earlier on, she talked about they were looking for the Karakan, and she sees Rand up there and says the Karakan, which is interesting.
What does the Karakan translate to?
It's the Chief of Chiefs. It's the leader of that's going to break and bring together all of the ale. Basically, what they
and obviously Rand is ale, so they're there to sort of get him.
Yeah, well, they did. Yeah, but we won't go into any more information about that. But yes, the Chief of Chiefs is what the Karakan means. Right. Then you could cut into Mesma again. Well, like I said, he keeps popping in. They keep the little facial visual cues for him, and he's got awe in that moment. You've got Lanfear, who has this smug pride looking up knowing that she's made all this happen.
Yeah.
And then you just have the Edmund Field 5 with Elaine standing there, and it's just such a powerful moment to see. There's a few interesting things that I wanted to quickly bring up before we move on to the closing scene.
Yeah, go for it.
And it was an interesting one that I took notes on, and it could mean absolutely nothing, but it could pay off later on. I don't know about it, so it could do. Was the scene with Lady Suroth not being happy about being kept away from the battle, and then Ishmael comes in and he's dusting his hands off, basically, dusting the dust off his hands, says he's been busy doing other things. He finds out Turok's dead, and for some reason in this scene, Suroth's voice gets a lot of screen time. And so in that scene, I was like, why do they keep cutting to the voice? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And the voice is looking like she's about to step up and get a bit grumpy about it. Then it cuts. Then later on, we've got Moiraine sending the underwater firebolts to the boats, and it's Lady Suroth's voice that notices them coming. And I'm like, how is she noticing those coming if she, like, and I was just trying to work out, maybe she is a channeler under hidden, or like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's more to do with her character potentially, and whether or not her and Lady Suroth are dead, we won't know. But I just thought it was just a bit strange that that they keep cutting to her, and they cut to her a lot in that boat scene as well. So I'm curious about that and what that will mean. It might mean absolutely nothing. I've just taken it for a bit more than I needed to. But we'll see.
All right, we need to move on to this last scene. So Lanfear walking back into the building there. I think it's the one where she normally used to meet with a Shamil from memory. And she has someone there that immediately makes her very nervous. And it's Mogadine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, sitting there with the weave. And it was very interesting because it's almost like a spider web, the way that she sort of works with the weave. And very, very interesting episode, because we've just learned that Lanfear is supposed to be the most powerful of the Forsaken. She's to be feared and everything. That's some of the comments we heard. But Mogadine here, I don't know if it's because Lanfear was caught off guard. She seems to deal with Lanfear very well here, and Lanfear seems to be in a world of hurt throughout this episode.
Yes.
Kind of like feeling like she's in trouble. Well, firstly, she knows that Mogadine's not the only one that's back, because all of them have been broken out by a Shamil who is making sure that his way will continue on, or the fact that he wants the world to end will continue on even if he's not there, showing that Shamil was actually, we thought Lanfear was ahead of him the whole time. He was actually one step ahead of her by the end of this episode. Yeah.
And that whole scene, that softly from the shadows. And it was the one thing I've got to give props to for this entire season is the audio, the musical score that goes with it. Because watching the second time, I saw a note on Twitter, someone talking about how cool the sound and soundtrack was for this scene in particular. And if you get a chance to go back through, listen to it again, because it just changes. It's got like this twanging, and you got this sort of victorious sort of Lanfear walking through, knowing smugly that she's done it. And then it cuts to this, and it just goes to this sort of, shit's gone down, and you've got this Moghedian going softly from the shadows with the spider's web, and she so quickly and effortlessly traps Lanfear as well, which we know if Lanfear was prepared, would have been able to counter it, but she was caught unawares and unprepared for it. And I just thought that was really, really interesting. Lanfear is very strong, but she was just caught off guard, really, massively.
That's what I thought, because we were told that Lanfear is very strong. Now, obviously, Lanfear on her own is not going to be strong enough to fight all of them together. They'll overpower her. But it just felt like there was such a power shift here in this moment, and maybe the fact that she was off guard is why this happened. But yeah, it's interesting, because a lot of information is also let slip here by Mogadine, where she says that you and Shamil were always too close to the dragon. The rest of us, we don't have that problem. Like, we'll either bring him to our side, or we'll basically take him out of the equation. It's kind of what I'm getting. And it kind of shows that is the thing that also, I think maybe Lanfear is not just in this moment fearful for herself. She's like, we see her being very nervous and sort of having a bit of a sweat. And I feel like that fear was not for herself; it was for Rand.
No.
Like at first glance, you think it's because she feels like she's outpowered here, but it's actually she knows Rand. She even says, "Light help you, Rand L4." At the end of this,
which I thought was an interesting thing for her to say as well, because being from the dark, being a dark friend, calling for the light to help him, like that's essentially their God help you, Rand L4. Like that's the light help you. And for her to be calling that out is what I thought was really interesting. Really interesting. I think Andre Lee talks about how Moghedien is actually described as being a little bit different in the book, which, to be honest, for me, this portrayal fits in better, because Moghedien was always the Forsaken, and she even mentions it in the scene, was always the one who was hiding and was, too afraid or too cautious. And you don't want someone tall and voluptuous being the person who's trying to go undercover and trying to keep small and minuscule and spider-like. And that for me was always sort of like a counterpoint. It didn't sort of work. So the fact that they've picked this sort of actress who is stunning in her own right, but also very quiet and calm, and it could be someone you could look past. If you've got her and Lanfear in a room together, you may look past her completely just for Lanfear, which means she can work a lot more in the background and a lot more subvert, like a lot more under the radar. But then I also love that she was like, he's ours now. Just stay away from him. He's ours now. All 5 of them are. So it's not just Rand who's in danger. It's all 5 of them, and the Forsaken are going to take them all out.
Question from Lena: is the creepy lady in book 2? If so, I won't read it immediately.
Do you remember? I can't remember. She definitely has a lot to do later on in the book series.
So you don't believe that too much will be spoiled by reading book 2 in regards to her?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah. Dolores is saying it just looked like she was wrapping her up in what is going to be a cocoon. Also ask, was Lanfear related to her? I think they're only related as Forsaken, probably not like blood relatives.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Lena says, is the Lanfear is Abby from Misfits.
Yes.
Q saying, since they are reducing Forsaken count, Moghedien seems to be absorbing other female Forsaken, perhaps Messana.
Yeah, I wondered that, because we don't have as many Forsaken in this. There's only 8 of them, where I think there was a few more. I think 13 in total. So they've gone for that 8 number instead of 13, which is still a powerful number.
Andrea Lee is very upset about a girl being missing from season 2 that should have been on the show, that hopefully will be episode 1 in the beginning, will come into the show. We'll see if that does play out. Will, as we wrap up here, overall, let's have overall thoughts. What was your thoughts on The Wheel of Time season 2 in comparison to season 1? You're a book reader. You're a little bit more lenient than some other book readers who.
I am.
One of my best friends is a big book reader, doesn't like the show, stopped after season 1, watched the first 2 episodes, just can't get back into it. Now their partner's not allowed to watch the show either, and I'm like, I don't know what you're on about. It's a good show on its own. But as a book reader that's a little bit more lenient, what do you think of the show as a whole and the direction that it's going in?
Season 1, end of season 1, I liked it, but was a bit worried. Season 2, they've definitely righted the ship and have shown a lot more depth, and the writing is clever, and it's not necessarily hitting the same beats as the book, but it's still hitting a lot of important beats that we need to get the story to where we want it to get, if they get to do the entire series. I hope, my biggest concern is they're going to do a Netflix and stop it after season 3. As someone mentioned, Netflix is notorious for cancelling shows after 3 seasons, because after that 3rd season, they've got to start paying the actors more, and there's a lot more costs in the actual production of it. I just hope beyond hope that they go further, because season 2 is so strong, both visually, story-wise, everything. I just hope they don't go 3 seasons that we're done, we're not getting enough. The fact that this season missed out on a lot of advertisement, there's nothing. I get the fact that there's no advertisement where I am, because I'm at the south end of New Zealand. I'm not going to see a lot of acting. advertisements, but I've heard big cities in foreign countries, like in America and stuff, have got no advertisement at all. There should be posters up in like the London. Normally, new TV shows will have posters in the tube stations on the walls. There'll be advertisements being shown up on Times Square, like advertisements for shows. But because of the fact that they've had the writers' strike and actors' strike and everything else, they've not had any advertisements. And I'm worried that will, and also Amazon, by all accounts, is pretty bad at advertising a lot of their shows. It takes the showrunners and actors to do the advertisements. You think of the boys. The boys are one of the big reasons why they have such good advertising is actually social media wise, where they've actually got people creating fake accounts for Vought and all those things to create the content. And my concern is Amazon's not going to see the traction that they want from the investment that they've put in, other than you see it a lot on Twitter and the fans that have actually taken the time to watch it. But a lot of people don't even know it's been really released.
Yeah, that's a great point there. And it's a shame. I mean, at the end of the day, we have had, I think, top of the charts over in Amazon Prime over in the US for a long time now. So hopefully that does help. And Amazon is not bringing out that many new shows. We know season 3 has been confirmed. There's no news about season 4 as of yet. So we hope that they confirm that when season 3 comes out as soon as possible. But I think from a quality standpoint, it definitely upped the season for me. It seemed like like you said, the storytelling felt better. Like I felt like more
cohesive.
It was more cohesive and more of the stories, the things that they put in place, the work that they did in the earlier parts of the season, it all came to an end by season 2, where you kind of felt like, okay, there was a lot of different journeys here that kind of came to a conclusion, and they left us just with enough to want more for season 3. A couple of things that I want to know, like I want to know, does Matt still remember his past? Does he remember everything now? Like how are people going to react? Avienda, now that she knows Rand is the dragon and he is the chief of all chiefs. Elaine just meeting Rand for the first time is interesting. What's that interaction going to be like? Gwen and Rand not actually they haven't actually spoken to each other yet. So that reunion coming back next season as well. All of them being together. I think there's so much now to look forward to going into next season, especially with Lanfear now having to be extra careful on how she approaches next season, because she's going to be like, Lanfear may possibly be my favorite character in Wheel of Time right now, because she's so complex. And I really want to see how she navigates the Forsaken all being released and having her own agenda.
Yeah. But there's so many like this, and that's it. There's so many different characters that we haven't been introduced to yet that are huge. We've now got 3 Forsaken. One's just been terminated. We've got 2. We've got Lanfear and Moghedian, who we've now just been introduced to. Fantastic. We've got 5 other Forsaken that we've not yet seen. We've been alluded to because there were 6 that were released. We've got characters like Leandrin, who we haven't seen for a while now. What's she up to now? We saw her the last, after basically getting what's his name locked up. She's with Lanfear. Like, there's so many different characters and so many things out there that I'm worried that it'll get cancelled and we won't get the payoff for it. They've got so many good characters out there, and that's my only hope is they've continued to get it better, like to keep that level up, so that we get more seasons. But
I'm with you on that.
The acting's so strong, like the actors that they've got.
They've done an amazing job. Amazing job this season. I mean, I came into this podcast very nervous about covering it because I wasn't sure how it was going to flow, but I had a lot of fun doing it. This was your very first time ever podcasting on the channel, first time podcasting period. And I think you did a phenomenal job at doing that.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
There was some. You wanted to talk about the mist. Was there anything about the mist?
Oh no, I talked about it. I said that fog was created by the blowing of the horn. Yeah, that just reminded me of it. I was like, oh, that's why. And I only remembered that during the taping.
Right.
So that's fun.
So, if you guys want to see Will back on the podcast in the future to talk about non-reality TV related things, so TV shows that is a bit more scripted, since we're also looking into that now in the future, make sure you leave some comments below, some shows that you would like for us to check out. We will be doing House of Dragons when that comes out. Maybe a bit of a rewatch of season 1 as well would be good going into that, but I think House of Dragons would kind of fit really well with the theme of this type of show, and we're open to it. But thank you so much for everybody that's been with us this whole season, everybody everybody that is subscribed to the channel. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing, because like I said, the more you subscribe to the channel, the more you like these videos, the more you comment on certain types of lives, we know that the interest is there, and we know that you want us to do more in the future as well. But thanks for now. Will, any final thoughts to the live audience?
No, thank you very much for putting up with us, visiting us, joining us, and commentating. It's been really nice, and such a lovely group you've got of subscribers here, Chris. And remember, subscribe to Chris. If you're not already, hopefully we brought you a few viewers through doing this. But no, I've had a great time and definitely hope to do it again.
All right, we'll catch you guys next time on one of the other lives coming up this week. And thanks for watching. Bye.